Morning, everyone. Thank you for this particular privilege to do what I have to do. Um, Let me begin with this story before I take it up more properly. Now, we're talking about the power of resourcefulness. I hope you can hear me. Before I move on, let me get a confirmation.
Sir, we can hear you loud and very clear, sir.
Okay, thank you. I needed to say that most people fail in life because they lack mentorship. It's very important we take that to heart. I begin with that. Now, some years ago, I actually read a quote by an unknown monk, and what he said was simply this, that a man wanted to change the whole world. And because he was very young, he took up that adventure to change the world. He tried all he can to change the world, but nothing happened. So he reduced his dream of changing the world to trying to change his continent. And he did all he could to change his continent, and nothing happened. So he returned back to his country. But the more he was reducing his dream, he was getting more older. When he could not transform or change his country, he kept moving down. And by the time got to his community, he was already an old man. And trying to change the community was also more difficult. Then he decided, I'm going to change my family. And when he moved into his family, he discovered changing his family is the worst thing through the entire journey. Then he sat on the chair, and one day as he sat on the chair, he was just thinking through himself and discovered that if I started this journey from changing myself, I will have influenced my family will have influenced the community will have influenced the country, the continent, the world. And I will hit my chest and say, I have changed the world. You see, you can never, I repeat, in the present age we are today, you can never have a 5G idea and you will say that with a 3G mindset you want to change, you want to use that idea effectively. It will not and will never work. And that is where resourcefulness comes in. And with that, I want to say a big thank you to Professor Abinu. Thank you for this great and wonderful privilege. Dr. Taliha, you're doing a great work. I must commend you greatly. I celebrate each and every graduate seated and listening to me right now. I count it a great privilege. I have to sit from the emotional intelligence class through the global, how to connect with the global platform and all of that, down to aspect of mentoring and sponsorship. It's so key. I wish I had this about 16, 17 years when I was graduating, but it's fine. But you see, I consider this a great privilege. And that's why I'm being grateful, because I consider it a great privilege. And so it is very important that I needed to say this. Some people will never get a job in their life. I'm speaking to you. You can all hear me, and I'm speaking confidently. You know why some people will never get a job in their life? Because their makeup and design is not to get a job, but to create a job. But that does not mean you are not going to serve, maybe through internship or work under a particular organization without even being paid. Because I must remind you, from the story I began of the man who wanted to change the world, after reading that story for a certain number of years, I think from my university years, I always love to do things that have to do with training and consulting. I talk for a living, so where do I need to channel my talk into? I decided I would do that in the consulting industry. But 14 years ago, I found myself in the multinational telecommunication industry. I was paid six figures. That was about 14 years ago. And understanding that there is a particular guy who wanted to change the world but started it wrongly, I decided, instead of trying to change the world, let me work on myself. Let me do the things that I love. Because I was much younger, I can decide to resign. It's a hard thing to do. I will not encourage anyone to do what I've done. But I resigned from my six-figure job to go into a consulting business or industry, working for free for 3 years, just to understand how the industry works. Now, even if you must resign, you resign on Friday, but make sure there's a place you are resuming work on Monday. But that's for another day. For the sake of time, we're talking about the power of resourcefulness. So what is resourcefulness? Because as you're going out there, if you are not resourceful, people will need less of you. People will need more of you when you have value being brought to the table. And that is why resourcefulness is very key. It is very important to note that what we need, and what all of you, not most of you, all of you will need, is not resources. What you will need, even right now, is resourcefulness. Because when you have resourcefulness, or when you are resourceful, you naturally attract resourceful people. This is a known fact. When you're resourceful, you naturally will attract resourceful people to you. And that is why, from all we have heard, from talking about emotional intelligence, these are some of the things that will improve your resourcefulness. And Mr. Olani Yusuf, thank you for that wonderful and powerful presentation. He said something: if you really want to change the world, it has to begin from you telling yourself that I must change myself first, because you can never grow beyond the capacity of you. And that is why I said you can never use your 5G idea with a 3G mindset. It's not possible. And that is why when it comes to resourcefulness, resourcefulness is the quality of being able to cope with difficult situations, difficult circumstances, and it has to do with making most of what you have, where you are. And that is to say, at every point in time, wherever you are, resourcefulness is your ability, is your ability to take what you have and create what you want. In other words, we may be with little resources, but you see, it's an opportunity to go inside of you and make use of every creativity in the inside of you to be able to change or transform the moment where and which you find yourself at a particular point in time. And that is why it is very important I say this. Remember, one of you asked a very good question. He says that how comes today that when you go to certain offices, a lot of companies don't allow for internship? That may be true, but the simple question I want to ask is, how many companies did you find yourself going to? Because when I resigned from the telecommunication industry and I joined the consulting industry, or the consulting industry, management consulting industry, as an engineer, a tech engineer, I moved into a management field entirely. Now, moving or doing this transition, I have to work for 3 years without salary. Now, this is not a routine. I'm just giving you how I begin to build my own capacity. Now, when I did this transition, after 3 years, I told the second company I was working with that it is very, very important that I go and practice what I've learned through the years and through the season. And they gave me permission, and I left Lagos and returned to the north. And when I returned to the north, registered my consulting business, and I started training for free. I go to banks and seek their permission. Now, I was afraid to even take the action. But I realized in the life we're in, when it comes to resourcefulness, is that you go ahead and do the things you're afraid of. That's how to get rid of the fear. So I walk into a bank, what do you want? I may stammer sometimes, but I will make sure I pass the information I needed to pass. So to be able to get one bank to open up their door to say, come and do free training, can you imagine? Free training for us. I will sometimes go to over 30 banks. So the question is, if you go to 2 companies or 5 companies that you want to do internship and they reject you, that does not mean that's the total number of the companies around. Sometimes you may have to go to one particular company more than 50 times. Maybe on the 50th time, they will tell you, come in. You see, resourcefulness is that ability that enables or help you not to just hold back or lay back, okay? But you want to go forth and ensure that the particular thing that you really want, you're going forth for it. Because if you want something bad enough, you don't sit back. You go out there and get it. Now, one of the easiest things people give is excuses. And that is why it's been said that there are no menial jobs on the earth. There are no menial jobs. There are only menial minds. And I believe that seated and listening to me are not menial minds, but people with great minds who are willing to go out there and not only change the world, but begin that change from where they are. Because it is very important that when you give excuses or you give complaints and all of these things, you lose the opportunities that is tied around you. And that is why resourceful people, instead of giving excuses, they make the best use of every moment that they have. It is very, very important. I remember at the age of 9, I was in primary school then, and in a particular class, everybody has his textbook on the table. Everybody has his textbook on the table. I was the only one without that particular textbook. And it's painful when you are the only one that could not have a resource to help you through a particular practice, you know. So it is very, very painful. Now, what did I do? I kept asking my father, I need this textbook. And truly, my father could afford it. But he never really paid attention at that point in time. And I will never forget, I walked down the street and I found people working, and I went through the building. They were erecting a building, and I saw some stones. These stones were not really hard stones, so they broke part of it. So all I decided to do, because I was too young, I know if I asked them whether I should break the stones, they will tell me no and send me out. So I sat down there and began to break the stones. Why did I start that action? Because I needed a textbook so badly. I don't want to be the only one in the class who will sit without that book. And, you know, definitely people will laugh, but I decided to join in that particular work. I broke the stones for that particular day. And when the work was done for that particular day, the money I was given at the age of 9, bought the textbook and got some change that I dropped with my mother. My mother had never forgotten that particular act that I have taken. And that particular act is one of the things that have changed my diverse phases of my life time and again. But you see, this is a career talk. This is not about me. But I must be able to make you realize that it is very important that you shouldn't be in a hurry to become a CEO. You must be able to start with what I call the OOO. OOO, what that simply means is begin as you exit out of the university, even maybe right now, see yourself as the only operating officer in your business or in that job you want to go out there and get. When you see yourself as an OOO, only operating officer, what that simply means is you delegate yourself authority, you delegate yourself assignment, you delegate. So it's like you are having an office. So you needed to have a cleaner, you needed to have a secretary, you needed to have different people serving at different capacity. But as an OOO, you are playing every role so that you understand how all of this operation work, even if it's just in a week. Because you see, becoming a CEO, there are a lot of things tied to it. There is a lot of things tied to it. Why I'm saying this is because some of you may not work for too long, and you will be the ones that will set up the trail in this country and beyond, setting up companies that will grow from little company into mega companies. But you must understand how this operation works. And that is why I said when you serve as an OOO, you are playing almost every role. All of this is so that you understand, and because the resourcefulness is in you. A resourceful person tends to use every ability that he or she has to get themselves involved into practices that will help them improve in their life consistently. And that is why it's also important you never major in minor things. Never you major in minor things. What that simply means is that you put more of your energy into things that will help you in building or getting to that particular result you want in your career. And if you're going into business or converting your project or whatever you have into a product or services, you major in activities that will cause you to have more results. You major in activities that will enable you to have a good network of relationship. And that is why all the courses we had in this entire career talk, they are valid courses, and they are very important for each and every one of us to connect with this reality. It's so important. Someone says only being in Nigeria, talking about being in Nigeria, that if you're in Nigeria is is an achievement to be in Nigeria. It's like having in your CV that I have stayed in Nigeria is an achievement, because people don't just sit in this country and say things should work. Of course, there are a lot of lazy people, but that doesn't mean that people are not doing things. A lot of things are happening in this country, and we are the ones that can change the entire scope or the entire things, that is before our very eyes. And one other thing I needed to say, sorry, I didn't have a particular strategic presentation, so just permit me to flow the way I'm coming in today. Now, when you find yourself in the workplace, it's very important that you don't just work to earn salary. Earning is good, and every time you work, you will definitely be paid. But it's very important to note that when you're working in any working environment, the reason why you're working is not only to earn. The reason why you're working is to learn through the process. Because when you work to also learn, what happens to you is this, that you work to also learn, you receive what we call the currency of relationship. That's one of the first platforms you begin to build, a very strong currency that could transform your life in time to come. And that's why I said when I started that when you are resourceful, you naturally attract resourceful people. And what gets you resourceful is your ability to learn and not only to earn. So it's very important you note, because when your job is taken away from you, what will be left is called your total self-worth. And except you intentionally build or put yourself into the practice of learning through the process, you will hardly pull out that currency called the currency of relationship. There's also what is called the currency of favor. You see, so time and again, there are a lot of things that comes to mind when we are talking about resourcefulness. But you see, it is very important to note that in the age we are in today, things are moving really, really fast. It's been said that with a 3G, talking about 3G, to convert a normal movie will take you 3 hours, 30 minutes to convert a normal movie with a 3G. And the same movie, if you are to download a normal movie with a 3G will take you 3 hours, 30 minutes. And to download the same movie with a 4G, that's 4G internet network, it will take you 3 minutes, 30 seconds. Guess what? To download the same movie with a 5G will take you 3.5 seconds. that is revealing to you the age we're in today. Is a vocal world. Vocal world means things are changing real fast, and it takes resourceful people to be able to deal with this random change that is happening around the world. And that is why it's very important you note that when they say it's a vocal world, what they are simply saying is we're in a world that is volatile, filled with uncertainty, filled with complexity, and it is also filled with ambiguity. What that simply means is the things you used to know yesterday is already turned obsolete today. So to be resourceful means that when Alhaji, yes, Alhaji, what's his name? Alhaji Nasir Giwa was speaking. He said, some of you need to go and get a vision board. This is because when things are changing real fast, talking about volatility, you will have a clear vision of what you're doing with your life. And as a result of that, every energy you're putting in assuring that you manifest that vision you're building up. And that is why when other people are tied with volatility and as it leads into uncertainty, you will have understanding of what you're doing with your career. You will have understanding of what you're doing with the business you're building. You have understanding of your function in the workplace that you are in. So when other people fall in from volatility to uncertainty and they move to complexity because they're not doing anything about it, you will have clarity because you're moving from vision to understanding, from understanding to clarity. And you see the major challenge with the negative side of the vocal concept, which is the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. That word ambiguity there talks about when things turn out to be abstract. Things are not really making sense again. So you find out all through your career, you've gone through an amazing engineering course, but in less than 4 or 5 years, the technology have advanced so strong that all you've learned has turned out to be obsolete. But you see, when you have a clear vision, where other people face uncertainty, you have understanding. Where they face complexity, you have clarity. Where they face ambiguity, talking about abstract, you have ability to be agile, talking about agility, your ability to be flexible. And all of this is tied to resourcefulness. When you are resourceful, you will naturally attract resourceful people. I keep saying this. This is almost like the 4th time. So it's very important we note this. So a lot of distraction is all around us, but it's very important you note that when it comes to resourcefulness, there are key ingredients tied to resourcefulness, which I must remind you that you have it. All you need to do is you have to continue to build on those things. And one of the first things it has to do with resourcefulness is your ability to be creative. That you have creativity in the inside of you. You have what we call decisiveness, your ability to make decisions and stick by those decisions, because those decisions that you take is what will push you to put in energy in the activities that you do, that at the end of the day, we will say that you are productive, not just being productive based on being busy, but productive, creating values that people will not only connect with those values, but they will be able to exchange their money. If you're working in a corporate environment or a normal organization, they will be able to increase your salary because of that resourceful act that you are carrying in those organizations or that organization you find yourself. So aside creativity, aside decisiveness, tied one of the major ultimate resources in resourcefulness is what we call passion. Aside passion, we have honesty, sincerity, and love. And all of this is what will make you to be really sought after. I remember Alhaji Nasir Giwa was telling us about sponsorship and mentoring, and he encouraged us that if we can get sponsorship and mentoring, it will form for us one of the fastest way to make things happen in our lives. And these are some of the things that have helped me in the business mentoring and business consulting practice that I'm doing today. Now, I end up with this little story. When I resigned from the multinational telecommunication industry in 2009, I joined a a group of Alliance of Change Empowerment speakers. I paid close to almost 6 figures to join the Alliance of Change Empowerment speakers, because I need to build on my ability to speak to people so that I will not be afraid when I face any audience, because I want to be a consultant. And at that particular time, I have to start a course on Leadership Academy in Lagos and other courses. Now, when I joined Alliance of Change Empowerment Speakers, because I paid good amount of money, everyone has to be tested. So I was asked that the following month, I was going to be speaking for 5 minutes. So I was given 1 month to prepare. Now, the challenge was not what to say, but the kind of audience I'm going to stand before and speak to. And those who form the panel is, we have Nia Desanya, we have Fela Durutoye, we have Ben Gashes, and some of the top guys in the speaking industry in this country. So I was so afraid that the only thing I could do was to start practice. So I would go to the back of the house in Lagos, somewhere in Ogudu, Lagos. Now, when I go to the back of the house, I ensure NEPA have carried light, because in Lagos, once they carry light, everywhere will be noisy, everyone owning their generator. So I will use that opportunity to speak out and be using my body language, using my hands to move and all of that. I never knew, the more I was doing what I was doing, the security man was watching from his window. And he came to me and said to me, Oga, I hope all is well with you. I hope nothing is wrong with your head. So, you know, people will, I mean, I laugh, but it wasn't funny because I'm trying to practice and you think I'm mad. So I said to the security, he's a young guy. I said to him that one day I'm going to, this particular thing I'm saying, I'm going to keep saying it until one day people will pay me for this. The young boy laughed and laughed and laughed. You know, I felt so bad. Why did I even have to tell him what I told him? But do you know, few months later, not up to a year, when I started with the first consulting industry, and I had an opportunity to speak for 5 minutes. And on that opportunity, the only person I shared with was the security man, because nobody believed me in the house I was staying. So when I told him I was going to go and speak, and on that particular day I was going to be the first speaker to speak at DSTV multi-choice team building event in Lekki Peninsula at Lekki, Lagos. And I left the house early because it was Saturday, there was no much traffic, and I returned back on time. But when I returned, I showed this young man a check of close to half of 6 figures. And the young man was shocked. He said, "You mean you just went and talked and they gave you this amount of money?" I said, "Yes." Now, I never knew what I said to him. Something happened to him at that point in time. It was a few weeks later, he came to me and said to me, I bought a form. I wanted to join Oron, Maritime Academy. And I never knew where the whole thing started until some years ago. He didn't get to start the program in Oron, but like 5 years ago, he called me and said to me that, "Sir, I'm doing my program in Mina, that's the same, your own university." And I was like, "Wow, so you were able to come down here?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Remember when I was laughing at you, that when you were speaking, and I was laughing, I never realized that when you learn and you put into practice, it can actually transform your own life." And Abubakar is one person, and among other people that have rubbed on the influence on me, just trying to build my life and capacity. Today, Abubakar is a graduate. He's working in Lagos and doing well. Why? Because he saw me being transformed into the things I said I want to be. I must tell you, people are watching you. You have young people looking up to you. You may not even be aware. The life you live, the companies you build, the things you're going to transform, the prototype you're going to change into businesses, mega businesses, building founding principles, learning structures that will hold these companies for more than 50, 100 years for the first time in Nigeria. People are going to copy you, but you must take up that opportunity on using that what you have to create what you really want. And that is resourcefulness. And with that, I want to end up my note right now. Sorry, I didn't have a breakdown on activity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for that wonderful presentation. I think we should give him a round of applause for that. Sir, we'll now go to the question and answer session. So the first question has dropped and it reads thus. Sir, you suggested an OOO model and you said you don't advise anyone rushing to become a C-suite. How would you scale this model for someone whose drive is working in a fast-paced system and the intention is to climb up faster because there is more interesting work to be done? Sir, did you get the question?
Can you come again, please?
Okay, the question reads to us, you suggested an OOO model, yes, and you said you do not advise anyone rushing to become to the C-suite level. How would you scale this model for someone who is on speed to get to the top because there are more interesting work to be done at the top?
Awesome. Now, when I said that, remember, if you go back, that's if you get the recording and listen, I said being an OOO does not mean you do that for a very long time. I said you can even do that for a week. You can even do that for a few days. Now, OOO, what that simply means is like taking the place of a chief operating officer, a COO, where you learn how it's like when you have an interface of a computer, there's always a back end. So being an OOO is understanding the rudiments that are involved through the things you want to get into. So it may not necessarily take you a long time. Now, that is just an advice, you see. So what make up a CEO? You don't just jump from down here and get to a CEO unless you have read or practiced certain kind of acts of, taking that place of a major player as a CEO. So it's very important that we understand that everything in life is a process. And when you say you want to blow, you discover that one day you truly blow, but you soon blow. I guess you understand what I mean. So it's very important we note that I'm not trying to say you can't build up so hastily or fast or all of that, but it's very important you know what the process is involved. Because as a CEO, you can actually employ a COO to work for you, but with an understanding of an OOO, it helps you understand the process more effectively. It helps you have almost a seamless structure. It helps you build up systems that will bring you some level of cash flow, that, some kind of organized system running all around you. So the OOO is not actually to let you not actually emphasize that you are not going to end up as a CEO, but understanding what is involved in building structures, systems, and all of that. So that's the reason why I came up with that template. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, and thank you very much for answering the question. So the next questionnaire is here. So please go ahead with your question.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you very much for this session. Really appreciate it. I'd just like to ask how we can connect with you to just to get your contact, to be able to get in touch with you.
Okay, once you just Google my name, Solomon B. Aliyu, I think it's you connect with most of my handles. So I think that's Solomon B. Aliyu or Aliyu B. Solomon. Any of it. Once you Google it, you will connect with me. Anyhow, yes.
Thank you very much for that, for answering our question, sir. It has been a 30-minute power packed from you, and we really appreciate it, and we hold this in high esteem. Thank you very much for having us this morning, sir. And Professor Ibinu, you want to say something before we go to the next presenter?
Yes. Can you hear me over there?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Hello?
We can hear you.